Welcome everybody to Talk of the Town. I almost forgot the name of the show for a second there. God, happy Wednesday morning, everybody.
Absolutely.
Talk of the Town for the month of August 2024. Our newish virtual format,
Right.
where we come together and talk about everything that's on your mind, all the different topics, questions. We got some questions from social media, so thank you for everybody that submitted those. We're going to get to those in just a little bit. Today, we're going to be talking about a number of different things, but we're full in on budget season right now, so that's going to be a major topic. We have debris pickup from Hurricane Beryl that we're wrapping up on. We'll give you an update on that.
Right.
And then we have some...
Talk a little bit about streets and maintenance and
some
those
new
good things.
Some new tools that we have
Right.
at your disposal. So what do you want to start with? You want to start with budget?
Why don't we start with Beryl first?
Okay, yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, just give a quick update on Hurricane Beryl and our pickup efforts and all those kind of things.
Yep.
You know, if you're tuning in and all of that, we have put out the call this last weekend to get all of your debris, anything that's remaining out. This week is the last and final run through the city.
Yep.
We are doing everything we can to wrap everything up by the end of this week.
Yep.
With Hurricane Beryl. And I will say, you know, Hurricane Beryl blew through on July the 8th.
Mm-hmm.
So as of September the 8th, it will have been two full months,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I think we're going to have all of our efforts, at least in the community, pickup efforts done and complete in just under 2 months.
Yep.
Which is really a remarkable task. But
And if you go by the on Bailey Road
Rec
over
Center.
next to the Rec Center, that's where they've been putting all the vegetative debris, and they're currently in the process of mulching it. Oh yeah, here's some B-roll from that.
yeah, it's a massive pile of debris.
Unbelievable.
And that is just the vegetative, all of the C&D, like your fence material,
construction
and construction and demolition type material, that goes straight to the landfill. So we don't catalog it here.
So this video is when they just started mulching. But that pile now is
crazy.
10, 15 times the size. I mean, it is massive. They've been eating through a lot of that content, or a lot of that debris really
so
quickly.
we've had a lot of questions about what happens to the mulch, what happens,
Yep.
you know, can they get some and all this kind of stuff. So we have to follow FEMA rules and regulations when we do this kind of thing
because
we're being funded, because
reimbursement.
we're looking to be reimbursed by FEMA at least 75% of this effort.
Mm-hmm.
And so their rules and regulations require for it to be mulched, and that mulching actually goes to a company that picks it up. I believe it's called Evergrow. They're an organic mulching and composting recycle firm.
Yep.
And what they ultimately do with it, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But we have been told that this mulch, once it's all mulched up, is not for landscaping mulching.
I see.
So, you know, if you wanted to pick it up, it wouldn't be very good for your landscaping.
Well, and you have to think about, and landscaper son. I use pine bark specifically.
Right.
That's one of the better mulch to use, but it's specifically pine mulch.
Right.
This is a mix of
everything.
Tallow
trees,
oak trees, pecan trees. I mean, it's a bit of everything.
Right.
So while it is technically mulch, it's probably not what you want in your flower beds and what you want to.
But we do get a fair amount of questions about it. So like I said, we Monday night, just a couple nights ago, in our council meeting, we actually increased the contract with our pickup service series.
Yep.
We initially
had vegetative debris.
Just because of the sheer volume was probably double what was anticipated. We had an initial contract of about $2 million to pick everything up. We added $1.5 million to that. So that's $3.5 million. And again,
and I believe the total estimate in volume is 185,000 cubic yards.
It's right at 200,000 now.
200,000, yeah.
195 or 200,000. Right.
Imagine the inside of a Costco, bigger than that, floor to ceiling.
Right.
All vegetative debris. I mean, that's a staggering number.
It's huge. And so we increased that. So just, these numbers are staggering. FEMA will ultimately reimburse us. We have to go through a complete process. There are people who watch what they do, and they're not just standing there not working. They're part of another company that is monitoring what's going on, eyes and ears, watching the contractor and documenting everything that they do. And that has to be done for the audit in order to get reimbursed. And we'll get 75% of that cost reimbursed. That's right, $3.5 million, and we have to pay 25% of that.
Right.
So that is
better than paying 100%.
It's better than paying 100%, but still,
because that goes back to taxpayer dollars.
Oh, it's all of our dollars as taxpayer dollars that are going into that. So, you know, it could be done cheaper for the taxpayer. It could be that every homeowner would be required to do their own.
Right.
But FEMA does step in, and as long as it's a declared storm, as long as the damage is over a certain dollar amount, which clearly, you know, this one was, then FEMA, it becomes FEMA eligible. And it did take us a few days. It was Tuesday, late Tuesday, after the storm blew through, before the White House signed the declaration. We did have congressmen and others working on that to make sure that did happen. So fortunately for that, but it'll take, one question Monday night was, you know, how long will it take to get reimbursed? Vegetative and pick up debris is usually very, very quick. Very, very quick is a year. And then we're still working through reimbursements on Harvey. And it took Ike, city manager told me yesterday, it took all of 9 years to get some of Ike reimbursed.
To reconcile all of that. And,
So let's move on to talk about budget.
This is, if you need some light reading, this is the
budget
fiscal
book.
year 25 budget book. We got we did a nice little graphic for that. The triple P, the planning, preparing, and preserving is the theme for the year. But this document represents a significant amount of work from staff perspective, and then a significant number of conversations and time spent between staff and council to discuss everything that's represented in this document.
So I'd like to take a few minutes and just kind of explain, one, our budget process that begins all the way back in February, and then a real high-level overview of how the budget is constructed and what is all, you know, in the budget. So, for, you know, those of you watching, our budget process really starts with our council going on a strategic planning retreat. We do that at one of our facilities on a Saturday. We take the better part of a Saturday, sometime in February. I think this next year it's actually going to be right at the end of January, simply because of the way the calendar is falling. And, you know, with the 7 council members plus myself, we come in and it's really a strategic priority session. We talk about priorities over the next year. We talk about priorities over the next 4, 5, 6 years and beyond, and where do we want to move and do things with our city. And so at the end of the day, that starts the budget process. That gives direction with our goals and those types of things and milestones to meet those strategic priorities. That starts the budget process because it gives staff direction from the council as to where, what, and how to plan. Again, the budget planning and then preparing and then obviously preserving. So we've got to be prepared for just about any type of scenario that may come down, you know, on us, like a hurricane.
Good, bad, or otherwise.
And we also have to preserve. We have a lot of infrastructure and those types of things in our community, and we need to preserve that. So it starts with the planning. And so then there's some early input budget session in about April, May timeframe, and then lo and behold, somewhere around the 1st of August, we all get the budget book, and we start going, and it's hours upon hours upon hours of staff time, each department submitting their budgets, submitting all their wants and wishes as well as their needs and those types of things. And there's quite a bit that actually goes to the cutting room floor that never even make it into the budget. So then Monday night we had our third budget discussion session.
No voting, nothing.
Yeah, we'll be voting on the budget. First reading of the budget will be on November.
September.
I'm already wanting to be in November. September the 9th, and then the The second reading will be the second meeting in
Because
September.
it requires 2 readings, and you vote on the budget as well
And
as
tax
the
rate.
effective tax rate.
And the tax rate.
And just to brag a little bit on the budget team in terms of timing, there's a lot of work that goes over the course of the year to develop the rough numbers of the budget, but nothing can really be put on paper until we know valuations.
We know our values.
Because the budget that's needed to keep the city running, to pay the city's debt, to do all those things, that's a number, and then that has to be correlated with what the value is in the entire market to figure out what the tax rate would be and if it's realistic.
Right, and I will say this year...
That happens in a couple of days.
So yeah, it happens over about a week to 10 days.
Yep.
And so we get the final certified appraisal roll from Brazoria County and Fort Bend County. And then in Harris County, we get a certified estimate, which I'm still having a hard time understanding how it's a certified estimate.
Right.
And we get we get all of those within about 2 or 3 days of each other, right at the end of July.
Yep.
And so
the budget turn around the
and
following-
those become our final numbers that we use to plan and finalize the budget. Now, having said that, we get kind of a running total of values starting in April.
Sure.
And it moves through a process, so we're not blindsided by anything. We do have
But
some,
putting the finals numbers together
Right.
is always,
And
it's a tight window.
it's a very tight window, and they've got to finalize that budget in a matter of days, print it, get it ready. Incidentally, there's a very good, all of this is up on the website. You can go and look at the
Brittany,
budget.
pull up the website. Pull up my computer screen, and I'll show you, show the audience. So under the finance section of the website, the very first thing, there is a whole budget section, so you can look at budget development, previous budgets, things like that. But if you just click on the FY25 budget development, there's a fully packaged, everything that's in the budget book that we have sitting on the counter right here is available right here, and you can drill down into any account. You can drill down to any department. You can look at strategic priorities.
Well, and the good thing, on this, again, this goes back to transparency. Any of the agenda items that council is looking at, from the budget to just a regular agenda,
Yes.
everything that the council sees and gets as information is available to the public. We
Yep.
don't get, all of this information and very little to the public.
Sure.
Everything that the council gets, the public gets. So you get to see all of the different memos and all the different things that go into a particular item that's on our agenda, let alone the budget. And so the good news is, so let me just go through the construction of the budget. A lot of people think, it's just what you see, police, fire, public works, and those types of things. But our budget is made up of several budgets. Number one is the M&O, or the general fund, and that's where I would say the bulk of your operations is going to be. That's where your fire and your police, your parks, public works, like streets and maintenance and those types of things go in, as well as the departments that support those four main pieces.
Yep.
From HR to finance to IT and those types of things. So that is that part of the budget. Some of that is funded with sales tax. Some of that is funded with property tax. Some of that is funded with special use fees, like if you come in for a permit, those types of things go into that budget. Then you have your debt service. It's a very quick and easy calculation. It's what does it take to fund your debts and your debt service for that year. That is a fixed amount, very similar to your mortgage at home.
Yep.
It's a very fixed amount, and that drives part of your tax rate. So those
and
two
your debt
budgets.
service is built on your capital expenditures.
Capital
that
improvements.
you've had to finance
That's correct.
out.
That's correct.
over
And
a number
so
of years.
those two budgets right there make up your property tax rate. So there's a debt rate, and then there's a M&O or general fund, and that makes up your tax rate for property taxes. Then you have the enterprise fund, or the water and sewer operations, water,
Completely
sewer,
separate.
and garbage.
Yep.
All of that collection and water, all the plants, how the plants operate, all of the work that goes on. If you see a crew out there, because of a busted water main or something like that, all of that operation comes out of that budget. That is funded through your water and sewer funds. There are no property taxes in that fund.
Yeah, it's still
It
a
is
government organization, but
Correct.
it's a self-funded mechanism.
Correct. It is meant to be a self-sustaining and self-propelling, business enterprise within the city operations.
And so people will hear us talk about utility, enterprise fund, Pearland Water. Those are all the same thing. So Pearland Water is the enterprise fund. The enterprise fund makes sure that we have clean drinking water supplied to every resident that has a tap to Pearland Water and pays a Pearland Water bill. We clean all of the wastewater leaving homes to make sure that we're putting clean water back into our streams and tributaries and things like that. And then we have a pass-through cost for solid waste collection services. Right. We partner with Frontier Waste, so they do all the trash pickup. We collect the bills for them and then pay them out on the back end.
Yeah, so that's those three budgets. Then we have the capital improvements plan. Mm-hmm. What are we going to be doing from a capital standpoint? If you'll recall,
also has a general fund side and an enterprise side.
It does. It does, but there's the CIP, budget itself. So that is a separate budget within the overall budget. What's being planned over the next year and how that's going to be rolled out. If you'll recall, in May of 23, we had a bond election. Mm-hmm. So those types of projects are moving forward, as well as it's no secret we've been in a long-standing capital improvement program for water and wastewater. We're completing an expansion of one of our wastewater plants. We are completing our surface water treatment plant. We're just simply waiting on TCEQ to give us the final check.
It's cleaning water right now. Yeah.
It's actually producing water right now. We just can't put it in the system. We have to put it back in the creek right now. Mm-hmm. As it's running and operating. And then we've got a new wastewater treatment plant project that is gearing up over here at Berry Rose. And all of that.
Just approved the first phase of that, just broke ground on the first one.
Just a couple of months ago. And so all of that is in that enterprise fund, and but that's all part of the capital improvement projects budget. Yep. And then you get into the Pearland Economic Development Corporation budget. Yep. And then you get into Visit Pearland, which used to be formerly known as our Convention and Visitors Bureau. We have those two budgets that are all rolled up into one budget. So real quick, what's going to happen with the tax rate this year? As proposed, we've got a tax rate decrease of about 2 cents coming. That's what's been proposed so far. There hasn't been much movement from council on that. That will still allow us to fund all of our operations. We have fallen a little bit behind in police and fire pay versus the market. So we go and look at our market every year, just like a business does.
We have to stay competitive.
We have to stay competitive in the market, or we'll have good people leave and go to other departments. And so we want to be competitive. So we look at some 4 to 6 different departments that we have direct competition with, like Houston, Sugar Land, League City, Pasadena, Baytown, to name a couple. And so we look at those departments, and we look at our pay versus them, and we kind of want to be in an average of those to stay competitive, with those markets. So we needed to make a little bit of a bump this year in our police and fire in order to make sure that we stay competitive there, so that our budget will allow that to happen, as well as our regular employees, just making sure that we're keeping up with some of the inflationary pricing that every single one of our employees, as well as you and I and everyone, are facing, in the marketplace. It still allows us to do some of our supplemental things and again, some of the strategic priorities, moving our city forward in several areas. Yep. So 2 cent rate decrease. And then on water and sewer, as I mentioned, we're in the midst of about $500 million. About 520, $540-ish million worth of capital improvements in our water and sewer fund. This will actually allow us to have water for the future and make sure that for the future our wastewater is treated the right way. Yep. So water rates.
It has the capacity.
So we have a pretty extensive water modeling system for our rates, so we can put all and plug all that in. It's based on a few variables. We don't know in any given year how much water we're going to sell because last year we sold a lot more water because of the drought. This year it's been a little bit wetter early, but as of late it's been a little bit dry. So people are back to watering their yards and those types of things. So it's all based on those types of things. We've been looking at different scenarios, and the council has really been wanting to take a lot of these big spikes out of the rate model and do a little bit flatter. There are some increases, but make them flatter, more predictable. And where we're landing looks like this year is about a 7% increase. If you'll recall, last year we had a 14, and at the time we were looking into the 20s, upwards of 20 or 19%, and we've managed through the water sales of last year bring that back down to about a 7% increase. And so what we're looking at right now, the way the model is constructed over the next 3 years would be 7% a year for the next 3 years. And then there are some bumps. So we'll see.
Which, projecting that far out, there are a lot of variables. It's hard to predict.
There really are, and it's hard to know because we don't know if we'll have another drought or another, super wet season and those types of things. But
we can operate based on the information we have now and make the best, prediction possible.
So I do want to talk a little bit, and we're going to move on to our streets here in just a second. But I do want to talk a little bit about what's driving this next major project. We're expanding the plant at Berry Rose, and we're actually collapsing, or decommissioning is the technical term. Of our Longwood plant. Longwood is about 60 years old. It is at its end of its useful life. Technology, imagine 60 years ago versus today. And we can get better efficiencies and long-term cost of maintenance by making that a large lift station as opposed to a full plant, and it'll be pumped back to Berry Rose. So we've got to increase Berry Rose to handle that, plus some addition.
But Berry Rose is also
it's about 55 years old, and so it's going to get a complete rebuild. We have the property there to do that. Longwood plant, 60 years ago. A lot of these plants are built along the creek because the effluent, once it's been treated, it gets released into the creek. Most of these are along the creeks. It is now in the floodway, not just the floodplain, but in the floodway. The creek has expanded the floodway over the years. It's now in the floodway. So, which means when we literally have a super flooding event like a Harvey, I hate to say this, but we're releasing raw sewage.
That plant goes underwater.
It goes underwater. And that is an environmental hazard. We get letters from the EPA, we get letters from TCEQ and those types of things. So being responsible to our neighbors, to Friendswood, we need to fix that. Plus, that plant is at 90% capacity. And by law, you have to be under engineering and then under construction by the time you get to 90. We did not meet those, but we were getting waivers from TCEQ because of the large capital expense that we've been doing. So the responsible thing is to do the right thing by the creek and environmentally make sure that we handle that. And again, 60 years ago when they built it there, nobody anticipates the creek expanding its boundaries and those types of things.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. We're looking at 7% increases over the next couple of years. What are the, if you didn't do that, the negative side effects of that? You wouldn't have your bond coverage to cover the projects that you have to do. You wouldn't be able to do your projects. You get fined by TCEQ and the EPA. And when they fine you, you have to pay them, and then they still make you do the project.
Well, and I'll say we have a sister city, Baytown, that several years ago they kicked the can down the road so far that the EPA stepped in on some of their wastewater efforts. And I believe their fines were upwards of $700 million.
Yeah, which is, you think it's expensive now.
So, and
$700 million fine.
And still had to pay a couple $100 million to do their plant. So that's not responsible for our ratepayers. That's not the right way to do that. So the good news is we're way ahead of the curve when it comes to making sure that we have water, make sure that our wastewater efforts are appropriately addressed. I will tell you, City of Conroe is out of water capacity right now. They're denying building permits because they can't do that. Magnolia is getting near that. Fulshire is near that. Many cities around the area doing these projects take years,
Right.
and if you don't have them planned and ready to go, you're going to be caught in a really bad situation. And so our councils over the last 30 years have tried to be forward thinking in water, wastewater, and making sure that we have the critical facilities to handle all that. So I wanted to say and camp out a little bit on that because you're going to see water rate increases over the years. But we've been trying to pare that down and really thread a needle between our bond rate and our bond coverage, as well as making sure that well, we just don't go too deep in the hole. We try to run it as close to cost as it is. You still got to have some reserves in the event that you have things that happen, and so we're trying to run that and thread that needle to keep our rates, where they're as least hurting. Let's just put it that way. To all of our residents, nobody likes increases. I don't like an increase at home either, and neither does our council. But at the same time,
water bills too.
Yeah, but at the same time, you can imagine what if we get hit with that fine?
Right.
That's going to come out of the rates.
So, I want to jump to the comments real quick, but before we get there, if there's one takeaway you want people to get from the budget, an average Pearland resident, what would it be?
Say that again?
If there was one thing you need Pearland residents to hear about the budget or to understand, what do you think that would be?
The one thing that I would make sure that people understand is our budget is really based on the true needs of our city. Not necessarily the wants. And one of the things that we've done over the last 4 years is really pared our budget to really addressing what city government should be addressing. Police, fire, public works, which is streets, water and sewer and drainage, in our parks, and then the departments that support them. We have a lot of conversations around, especially in our strategic planning retreat, is that our job? Somebody brings something up and they go, is that the job of the local government to handle? If it's not, let's partner with somebody else. Let's bring it to somebody else. Let's do what our local government needs to be handling. And so one of the things, again, we've tried to do over the last 4 years is make sure that the budget is really about municipal government and not a lot of other things.
We had a question from Beth. It says, can we get to budgeting maintaining Pearland beautification to get these ditches, streets, and land mowed, please? We look shabby.
I'd like to know specifically. I can't see the name. It's in blue. I can't see it. I think it's Beth.
Beth Militello.
Beth, I'd like to know a little bit more specifically because property owners are responsible for their land, not the city, and property owners are responsible for mowing ditches in front of them. So one of the things that we do is our code enforcement is very active in trying to rectify that. And so we're going to talk about streets here in just a minute. Large capital improvements going on in our streets over the next several years, and so we can get into. In fact, let's talk about the streets.
Well, and I was going to say too. I mean, we do have a right of way division. We mow. I think it's right at 300 acres every week, something like that. We do also have a drainage drainage crew that is going around the city. They have a full 10-year plan. That's maintenance specifically for drainage, but they are maintaining ditches, rescraping, things like that. So there are a number of different initiatives, and a lot of those you can find on our website with interactive maps.
And I will say, I mean, if the comment is about parks and those types of things, our parks crew since Beryl has had a few things to do, and so I would ask for a little grace on our parks crews. Our parks crews maintain all of the parks. They maintain the trees. They maintain the playgrounds and those types of things in the parks, and we don't do that with an outside crew. And so I would ask for a little grace on those crews to be able to do it. I think they're finally getting back to routine weekly mowing of the parks. Which is good, and so I would ask for some grace on that. Let's talk about streets.
Yeah, there was a comment about streets in Wesley asking if we had checked those streets. talk about streets.
Yeah, well, let's.
Can you pull up, Brittany, if you pull up my computer again? So we have a section on the website. We had kind of featured some of this on Monday night in the council meeting, but
So I want to start off and just go backwards about 10 years. So about 10 years ago, we did a pavement condition index across the city. It showed the condition of our streets throughout the city. Every single street is driven, and it's given a score. It's given a percentage of how smooth or how unsmooth, the street is. And so it came up with a number of about $4 to $4.5 million needed every single year to maintain our condition index. And I will tell you, councils routinely 10 years ago and to more recent, never put any additional money into streets. In fact, staff would ask and it would routinely get cut for the sake of tax rate. And this council is saying no to that and is putting more and more dollars into street rehab and street maintenance. Monday night, we approved a measure just below $3 million, literally like $7,000 below $3 million of additional street repair and maintenance and recapitalization of a lot of our asphalt streets. Probably most of the worst streets are asphalt streets. Doesn't mean that we don't have some neighborhood areas with concrete streets that don't have some issues. We do. But I want to be very candid that our asphalt streets is where the majority of our problems sit. So you can actually go to our website now.
Yeah. So if you pull it up, I'll show you. So it's under Public Works, but the easiest way, if you just search in the search box for Streets Division, it'll bring you to this nice page that has all the centralized information. The main focal point here is an interactive dashboard that's on our Geographic Information System, our GIS website.
So you do have to click that.
Yeah, you do have to click it. You have to understand this dashboard is updated very, very frequently. And so the information does change over time because it's constantly evolving.
So Josh, let's explain this dashboard a little bit. So that is every street in the city color coded.
And
every street in the city that's color coded. And so you'll see on the right hand side, from excellent all the way down to poor, poor. I like that. Or very poor.
You can click any segment and see what the pavement type, condition rating, and then the actual pavement condition.
So there's a fair amount of gray, green, and yellow. So good and very good. And then we start getting into fair, marginal, and then poor. So our efforts. So when we look at this. We go and address the worst streets to the best. Worst to best, worst to best. Why? Well, how would you feel if there was a worse off street that's not being addressed, but yet one that's in a little bit better shape than worst? So we try to use a scientific approach to this, and so this is where we're at. And so across the top, filter by rehab plan.
So this is.
So we just completed several roadways with a contract that we let about 4 months ago for about $1 million, and these are the streets that were rehabbed. A lot over in the Sleepy Hollow area, some on Fight Road.
And you'll notice they haven't been updated yet. They will be. The condition index will be updated since they are, repaired or new.
Yeah, we're literally just wrapping up that piece of it. In fact, one of our questions is when are they going to stripe some of this? The striping part of that contract is the very last thing that should happen. So I would anticipate that because we mobilize the striper one time. He comes in and does every one of the roadways that we do. And so we should be expecting some of those roadways to be striped here very soon. In fact, specifically, I think it was about Fight. So be looking for that very soon as that contract is wrapping up. So now go back to the dashboard. unclick, or now go
Yep.
to what this is what we just
Just
approved.
did, and then you can go to where we're going to be.
These are the projects that we just approved Monday night. You can see, is that yeah, that's
like
McLean,
McLean right there.
and several others that are
that section of Walnut.
the west section of Walnut, and you can see back in there, you see that red piece right there, very poor and marginal through those areas right there.
Max Road.
All total, I think this is about 8 miles of road that's going to be rehabbed throughout the community. It'll take some 3 or so months. With weather, it may go to 4. Just be patient if it's in your area. But McLean is a section that has been greatly needed for some time.
Sure.
It's a big road, carries a lot of traffic.
Yep.
But that's coming. That was just awarded on Monday night.
Monday night, yep.
So go to number 3.
So
this
then
is
you
where
go,
Public Works
3 to 6 months.
is looking at 3 to 6 months. So these
you see
are
that section of veterans that we know needs to be repaired.
So these are some of the areas that we're working with Brazoria County. So every single one of our residents in the Brazoria County portion of our city pay a road and bridge tax on your vehicles.
And then the county
as a part
puts
of that,
wherever they see.
and the county divides that up, and so that is some of your county tax dollars coming back to work inside the city.
Yep.
We have a partnership with them where we supply materials, they supply all the labor and machinery and everything else, and so we expect that that cooperative, which has been in place for some 30 years now.
And we leverage their buying power to buy our asphalt, to buy all the materials for it. So, I mean, they buy way more asphalt than than we could.
every county road across the county is asphalt.
Right.
So they have much stronger buying power
Higher
than we
volume.
do.
Yep.
We simply pay the bill. We use their unit pricing to do, and so that is something that's coming in the very near future. So go back to it real quick because I want to.
Yeah, because you can see. So if I click out of the and go back to the full view with no filters, you can drill into just by funding source. So this is.
Well, I want to go back to the CIP.
Sure. Yeah.
Go back to the rehab plan. Go to the last one. Okay. So let's talk about this real quick. You see a lot of roadways being handled here.
Yep.
Specifically, a lot of this is tied to drainage.
Yep. So this is Shady Crest is a really good example.
Shady Crest is an example.
Right here.
And so, as an example, when we went to the voters in '23 for drainage, streets, sidewalks, a firehouse, and those types of things. So inside those drainage projects are a lot of road repair.
Yep.
So you can imagine if we come in with heavy equipment into Shady Crest and the Creekside area and redo and address some of the drainage concerns, we're going to be tearing up and doing roads. So it does not make sense for us. Go to Harkey on here. I'll give this as an example. Harkey, right there. That's right,
to the
just below your cursor.
Yeah, right here.
No, down here, South Harkey. So South Harkey, if anybody's driven South Harkey, especially just south of Broadway, it's a minefield. It's horrible.
Yep.
Let me say it right now, it's horrible. Okay, but what we're going to be doing with that road, it would not make sense, and I want people to realize this, it would not make sense for us to come in and fix that road and then turn right around and do a drainage project that we bust up what we just did.
Yep.
That's spending good tax money for nothing, right?
And
so real quick, and so what's going to happen, this is an actual road that we're going to convert from asphalt to concrete curb and gutter. So, and that is all built into the CIP project for drainage.
Yep.
Okay, so those are projects that when you see that map, those are drainage projects that we're coming back in and we're going to rehab the roads. We've specifically, I need to actually get the timing of West Lee. That is a drainage project that was from the 19 drainage program.
Yep.
It's my understanding all that's left to do is rehab the streets in there. I actually need to get the timing on that because that should be happening very soon.
Yep.
If you'll notice on the map, it
Yep.
showed Wesley down there.
And if you look in our CIP, you can typically find when a project's in design or in construction, you'll see budgets aligned to certain years. And then we also do milestones report that give updates on if a project's been let, where it is in process, and things like that. One of the things I was going to point out about Shady Crest is not just the drainage. So there are also water sewer projects going on in that same neighborhood, transite water line replacement, as well as a lift station rehab, I believe. And they're all stacked together.
Yeah.
So the idea that you
Right.
minimize the amount
Right.
of time and effort.
We
and
want to come
maximize
in
the
once.
efficiency. Yep.
We want to come in
And then-
once. We want to inconvenience once.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Not
Yep.
do this and then here it comes again, then here it comes
Yep.
again. Those are lessons we've learned over the years. It's a little bit slower process getting to you because it's a bigger project.
Right.
But we think we want to get in once and done. We just completed Willowcrest as an example, completely. It was a drainage project. We increased their drainage volume capacity, but in the process, rehabbed all water and sewer, rehabbed all inside drainage, rehabbed the streets, or actually completely rebuilt the streets
Yep.
and sidewalks.
Yep.
So that is set up for 50 years of good running room. Why don't we get to the questions?
Yeah, let's. So Margie said another one. I feel like the more rich housing will be done for the older ones. I'm a senior citizen, and it's hard to even walk in our neighborhood. Let's see. She kept going. Our roads were okay until the city did our ditches.
And
Yeah.
that's Margie. She's talking about Wesley, and I think I
Oh, yeah,
addressed
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wesley.
Okay.
Yes, the streets are part of the Wesley project. We just haven't gotten to the street part of it yet.
Yep.
I actually need to check on the timing of that.
Is it
but
possible-
that is what we're finishing out the project with.
Beth said, "Is it possible Fight Road ditches be covered? Really narrow road and dangerous."
Yeah, Fight Road is as many of our, those are old county roads.
Yes.
That as the city annexed, those were county roads and they become city streets, city roads. And so over time, like I mentioned with Harkey, very narrow road, many of these we want to convert to
Yep.
concrete curb and gutter, but it will take years to convert all those.
And they are in the CIP, and they're on that interactive map.
Yeah, so
you can
Fight
see-
Road, as far as converting it to fill in the ditches, I will tell you this, you're not going to like this answer, but an open ditch actually holds more water than if we close it in. So for drainage sake, it's actually better to have the open ditch. It actually carries more water than if we were to convert it. That's not a good answer that she wants to hear, but it's the truth. I'd rather tell you the truth than
Sure.
play to your answer. But
Yeah.
so we'd rather get that road completely rehabbed, and you're going to see a section of Fight that we just completed, but you're going to see Fight in several sections with the drainage being worked on.
Yep.
And then after it's worked on, we're going to come through and rehab the streets.
Cool.
Let's keep going with some
Okay,
questions.
so we got some questions from a post we did. We got Kelsey Campos. Let's see. Park question here. I've seen pickleball courts at Centennial Park, but will Independence Park be getting pickleball courts as well, or no? That's a really good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a real good question. So we're kind of in the early stages of Independence Park. As you'll recall, Independence was part of the 2023 bond program.
Yep. Phase 2.
And so we will start that engineering effort here in about a year. So over this next year, one of the things that we plan to do is bring in stakeholders, user groups, things of that nature to
Yep.
help with what needs to be in
Sort
that
of a
park.
steering committee. of
Correct.
sorts. Yep.
And so, of course, we have the tennis courts that are
Yep.
there now.
Yep.
And one thing I would personally like to see there, we get asked all the time about more pickleball courts,
Yep.
throughout the community. And so I would hope that is something that we're looking at as part of the additional amenities in that park.
And I do know they have pickleball at the rec center too.
Correct.
You have to be a member there, but
Right.
it's there's a subsidized rate for Pearland residents.
Correct.
So.
That's correct.
Let's see. Rocio asked, "Is it possible to request speed bumps? If so, how do we go about it?"
Yeah, so in a particular neighborhood or area, we have a traffic calming policy and a traffic calming ordinance.
Yep.
In
And a
addition to
committee
that, in addition to that, we have a traffic committee, and that committee is not just engineering or it includes fire, police,
Yep.
and the like, so we can drill in and see what's appropriate in a given area. So actually, you can request it. But let me tell you what goes into speed humps. When I was on the council years ago, we got asked all the time, can we have speed humps in a given area? Mm-hmm. I will tell you, in any given neighborhood, if speed humps are a topic, they become a very divisive issue within the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. They're very divisive. I've seen it, and many times they want the council to solve their division. Mm-hmm. We're not going to do that. So instead, we're asking you in your neighborhood to go solve and how, where, and what do we want these. So it will require a petition of the affected area. So if you just have one street that you need to address, whatever that affected area is, those homeowners have to, about 75% of them have to agree to the speed hump, okay? And because then we know the neighborhood is bought in, the neighborhood wants to see that, and it will go through a traffic calming process. And we have seen them built. We have built speed humps at the request of neighborhoods who have gone through that process. So what I would say to the gentleman that asked the question, send me an email, and we will start that process and hook you up with the right folks. And get that process started.
kcole@pearlandtx.gov.
Yep.
Is the email address.
That's it. Just send me an email, and we'll be glad to start that process.
Okay, let's go to some of from the post. We had some comment questions. We'll go ahead and put those up there. We answered some of these already. So are they ever going to stripe fight between Harkey and veterans? We kind of talked about that.
Right.
Veterans and McLean streets continue to get potholes and degrading. Can we get these resurfaced? Working on that. So veterans is in that.
And we just saw that as a part of the streets dashboard, correct?
Why are we allowing developers to build and build? The space behind the town center was supposed to be a family outdoor space, and now more apartments. We need more entertainment and upscale restaurants.
Actually, what was supposed to be built behind the town center was an entertainment venue, pavilion, not just a pavilion and an open space for families. That is not, I don't know where that information gets to, but that was never in their zoning document to begin with. What was originally proposed was a large entertainment center type thing.
So like Stafford Center and
like a Stafford Center, something like that. And quite frankly, they've tried for years to get the marketplace to do that. And
at least 10 years.
At least. And it just hasn't materialized. Council has seen that the addition of the apartments that will come in there now will actually allow the town center itself. We're seeing more and more reinvestment. We're seeing a better upper scale tenant lineup. You've seen Kendra Scott, Lululemon, several others have announced. Kendra Scott's now open, and those types of things are coming to the town center because of the apartments. We get asked this question a lot. It's only the increase in traffic might be 5% increase in traffic per traffic studies. I can tell you if we'd have had the large venue that was original part of the plan of the town center, and remember I was on the council that approved the town center, so I know that plan development very well, and I can tell you the traffic headaches that would have been there would have been crazy, let alone late night things that would have happened around that lake and that pond as a result of it being there.
Would have been an issue,
Right.
And there was a lot of really robust conversation around that.
Oh, yeah.
So all of those meetings are available. All the minutes are published.
But I also want to address the first part of that question. Why are we allowing developers to build and build? So let me state this. Without a zone change, obviously some things wouldn't move forward. So there's been a couple of zone changes where we have allowed a few things to change and move on. I'm a very market-based approach guy. If you're a true conservative and you believe in landowner rights and those types of things, I believe that the market will speak. Secondly, if it is zoned a certain way and a developer comes in and buys, they have every right to go and build. We can't deny that. If we do, we will be sued.
Right.
We will be sued as a takings. We will have to pay them for that takings, and they still get to keep their land.
Right.
So the only way you stop all building is for the city to own the land.
Which gets very expensive.
So I would ask the person who asked that question, go raise a petition of your neighbors to put on the ballot about $500 million for the city to go up and buy up all the land.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
And so Texas is a property rights state. We cannot deny somebody a permit if it's properly zoned. Now, you're right. There's a few cases where we have rezoned property. But I will also tell you, we have turned down probably more things than we've approved. People just don't see it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's
keep going.
Okay.
We're coming up on 50 minutes.
Yeah. Why don't we require gas stations or grocery stores to have generators that can at least run the gas pumps for situations like freezes or hurricanes?
It's actually a great question, Chris. After Hurricane Ike, I actually called for and asked for at least transfer switches to be mandatory of gas stations. Just never could move the needle with council to force that. But would certainly like to have that discussion further. I don't know about having a generator in place.
Right.
I think all you need to do is have a transfer switch. What that means is you can safely plug in a generator, and then if a storm's coming, they can bring a generator in through many leasing options, and they can have it ready to pump gas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
Yep. Toby asks, what is going on with these water bills? Why are so many people experiencing double and triple their water bill over the same period last year without major changes to their home or household size? I think this pricing needs to be reassessed or re-justified.
So Toby, a couple things. One, I'm certainly not seeing or getting requests for high water bills currently. Doesn't mean that we don't have an occasional issue at a home or at a business that's causing a high water bill. Toby, I would ask you again, send me an email direct, kcole@pearlandtx.gov, and with your address. It's hard to dive into this without a specific address, and we can go and look at and see what the usage. It's all based on consumption, what's going through the meter. And so having said that, you have the customer portal.
Yeah, the Pearland Water Customer Portal.
Yep.
Every Pearland Water customer now has access to it, and that'll give you hour by hour usage up to the
Correct.
previous day for at least the last probably 4 months now
Right.
of content that we have.
And so it'll give you the opportunity to look at that hour by hour consumption. You know the pattern in your home.
Right.
You'll know if you're seeing continuous
Usage.
consumption that's going through the meter. If that's happening, we need to look around and find out why that might be happening at your house.
Because the water rates only change when the budget is approved.
But I can tell you, at this time last year, we were in drought conditions.
Right.
And as a result, many people were watering their slab. Everybody was watering their yard to keep it alive. So we're actually seeing less consumption across the board this year than we did last year.
Yep.
So if you're seeing that type of a scenario, reach out to me directly.
Or call.
We'll put you in touch with water billing directly.
Yep. So water billing
we'll
does
take a look at
investigate
Yep.
high consumption or unusual usage. They'll provide a meter profile and help you walk through those situations. So in addition to, if you want to call utility billing directly, 281-652-1603 is their direct department, and they'll be happy to help you. They have
Can
customer
we put
service
those
that can do
numbers
that.
in my email in the chat?
Yeah, we can plug those in there.
Okay. Next question.
Okay, so the next one is there something we can do as citizens to stop the building of car washes? I don't think it's necessary to have a car wash on every street. I see them going up and think that's a waste of money when it could be a local business we could be supporting. I just feel we need a variety of businesses on the east side of Pearland and not another car wash.
It's a great question, Sarah. I welcome you to come to council meetings. Keep a look at our agendas when we have a public hearing on certain things. Come and speak your mind on it.
And
that's what it takes. It takes you talking to council and coming in and addressing council when we have a car wash. I will tell you, those are not unanimous. There's usually a split vote on those types of things. At the same time, that is a private business itself that's wanting to come in. So I would also encourage you to go to other business owners, and if you want to see a restaurant, if you want to see other types of business, go recruit them. Go ask them to come to Pearland. Come and buy land and bring in their business. A car wash or any car-related business takes a conditional use permit. They're not allowed by right. It does take a specific vote from council, and so I would ask you to be involved and come to council and speak your mind on it. Please.
To the public
Yep.
comment, there is a public comment section in front of every regular council meeting.
Correct.
So it doesn't even have to be a
Yeah.
thing that council is voting on. You can come and have 3 minutes to speak about any topic that you want. So
Correct.
we highly encourage residents to come
Absolutely.
and participate in those meetings because
Yeah.
we love to see that feedback in person, and council loves to see the
Well,
bright shining faces.
and while we're talking about land use, let's address the charter school next to City Hall.
Sure.
Okay, many people say, why did the city allow this?
Yep.
Well, we didn't even have the question.
Right.
We didn't even have the opportunity. Number one, a private school by right in a general business is allowed.
Is allowed.
This isn't a private school.
Right. So it wouldn't have come across your desk.
It wouldn't have come across us anyway. It is a public charter school. As such, by law, by Texas law, signed by the governor of the state of Texas, a school district, which the charter school is a school district by law, does not have to go through zoning. So as a result, they can go and build by right. Now, they have to follow building
Permitting.
codes
Yep.
and detention and drainage and all of that. And so it is not a matter of the city, can we say yes or no to its existence?
Right.
That is settled in state law.
Yep.
And so if you don't like that, I encourage you to talk to your state representative, your state senator,
Yep.
and talk to them about it in Austin and give us the leeway and the say in being able to do that.
Yep.
As far as their traffic plan, they do have a traffic plan that allows, and it's starting to normalize now. I think the families are finally starting to understand where they need to come in
Sure.
and go through the Serpentine Road throughout the property and exit. And in addition to that, there's still a right turn lane from Liberty to Broadway that needs to be built. The holdup has been TxDOT and CenterPoint, hasn't been the city. We want them to get that built sooner rather than later.
Yep.
And so look for that construction to be forthcoming. So, but I wanted to address that as again, it's a land use, and we don't have the right to stop that.
Right.
Right.
Okay, next question. Why are we planting so much vegetation at the intersection of 288 and McCard? Grass is just fine. It just seems like a weird place to plant shrubs on the grassy slope leading up to the highway.
So Katrina, that is part of the improvements to 288 that the Pearland Economic Development Corporation did as really an entry through our city and beautifying that street. You're right. I think grass could be just fine, and there's always has to be a balance between how much of that you plant and do, because you got to maintain it versus the grass. Same thing with the pear sculptures. Those were all a project of the Economic Development Corporation, and there is a management district right along 288, and those businesses right along 288 that pay for that maintenance.
And that's a really important part. I mean, before the beautification and expansion of 288, it was just grass. And
it was grass.
And it was grass. And, the maintenance of that, I don't even know if that would have fallen to TxDOT.
So just so you know, most of your freeways around the Houston area are under the purview of the Texas Department of Transportation, TxDOT, and they only mow it 3 times a year.
Yep. And
so
now,
if you want more than that,
Yep.
it requires us to do that.
Well, and it would have fallen to the general fund or right of way,
Correct.
right? And now, under the Economic Development Corporation,
Right.
it's funded by sales tax, not property.
Well, that was the original improvements.
Right.
And so again, the businesses along 288,
right. The beautification.
like
or
the town
district.
center, the strip centers along 288 and the like,
Yep.
all pay about a 7-cent property tax, 7 or 8 cent property tax. The max is a 10 cent along that area, and they pay for that maintenance, not you and I that live in the rest of the city.
Yep. Okay, next question. Let's see. Clayton Mack. Will you ever be honest with the people of Pearland or remain a crook and hang out with criminals?
Man, Clayton, I love this question. Wow. I'd like to know, when have I not been honest with people? I think I'm honest and candid in this setting today. I'd certainly like to know what criminals I'm hanging out with, because I think I know the people that I hang out with. Anyway, folks, you can see those are the types of questions I receive periodically, and it actually is kind of fun to see that stuff. We laugh about them.
Yeah,
so.
we're going to ask every question just as it comes in, so we'll answer them to the best of our ability.
And because that's what transparency is all about.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you, Clayton, for allowing us to be transparent this morning.
Okay, the next one is from L.A. Brown. Who do I report the flood in our backyard and between our homes caused from the poor drainage on McCard Road? That also didn't drain for 3 days. That was after the last hurricane, but has also happened after a heavy rain. And all this water didn't help with the new fence we had to pay $13,000 for because the city didn't help with the sound wall or even a barbed wire fence. We've been paying city taxes for many years and still no sewer or water, just flooding us now when it rains.
So let's unpack that, Mr. Brown. One, I'd like to know an address. So again, in the comment section is my email address. That's kcole@pearlandtx.gov. Send me an email directly with your address. McCard is many, many miles long, and I need to know a specific address.
Yep.
So we can investigate and take a look at where that is located. As far as the sound wall is concerned, this was again, partnering with TxDOT on the roadway. We do sound studies, and quite frankly, again, you're not going to like this answer, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Unlike what Clayton thinks I don't do, I'm going to tell you the truth, and it wasn't warranted. We can't build those types of improvements unless it's warranted by the sound study. And so we conducted that sound study, and it was not warranted. Now, on water and sewer, and you've been paying property taxes, as I mentioned earlier, there are no property taxes that go into the water and sewer fund.
Right.
Okay? So water and sewer gets into neighborhoods and gets built as neighborhoods are built through developers paying for that, and that becomes the cost of each lot. Now, so that doesn't mean that we won't run water and sewer in certain areas.
Sure.
We may have water and sewer in the McCard Road area right there next to you. And if we do, you're certainly welcome to run a line to your house and seek a permit and go and do that and tie into water and sewer.
Yep.
And you have that right to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, next one's from Jim Pierce. Why isn't the city cutting the entire budget in every department? We are being run over by high appraisals and ridiculous taxes. Even still, our representatives just keep piling it on. Why should we continue to pay when we are drowning in inflation and excess government spending on every level?
So again, Mr. Pierce, I'd like to know specifically our budget. 62% of our budget is fire and police. 68 to 70% of our budget is people across the entire spectrum. And so I'd like to know specifically what you would like to cut. And at the same time, the city is experiencing inflation too.
Right.
It costs more to treat water and sewer. It costs more material cost and those types of things. We can certainly do less.
Right.
We can cut back on right-of-way mowing, and we can look different as a city. We can cut back on maintenance, and I think that has proven to be costly over time as opposed to less costly. So I would like Mr. Pierce to reach out to me directly and tell me exactly in the budget what he would like to see cut. Because I think what you're going to see in some of the other questions is people would like to see more.
Well, and I would encourage you too, over the 3 budget conversations that we've had, all of those are available on the website. But one of the things that has been presented is what's called the no new revenue rate budget.
Right.
So a no new revenue rate is exactly what it sounds like. It brings in the exact same revenue from the previous year. And you'll see a number of things that wouldn't be included, that have been asked for, that are necessary to maintain the continuity of essential city services, and that have been debated thoroughly through the process. So,
yeah, and I'll address Mr. Pierce also. If you want to compare us to the federal government, I'll put our budget up against federal government any day, all day, every day, on frivolous spending. We are not the federal government. I agree with you. That budget at the federal level should be cut in half, at least, if not more. I agree with you. I'm a kindred spirit on that. But when it comes to, we could cut police, but I don't want to be defunding our cops. We're seeing an increase in runs. We're seeing an increase in runs in fire. And again, that's 62% of our budget by itself.
Right.
Public
safety.
And then we have increased some spending in public works. We've added drainage crews. We're adding a new streets crew to help with maintenance and operations of our streets and our right-of-ways and those types of things. Parks and their programming have been flat now for several years. And so we take every line item in the budget and scrutinize it. It is a business enterprise, but I would welcome Mr. Pierce to look through the budget and come up with his cuts and show us where to cut the budget.
Sure. Next was from Heather Baker. It says, how do we get our city departments staffed appropriately? I'm not talking about police and fire, but parks and rec, animal shelter, public works, engineering. These departments are being burned out because of low staffing. Several of the questions here could be solved with proper staffing levels. I know it's part of the city's budgeting process and was called out by the city manager in the executive summary of the proposed budget, but in all reality, what actually needs to happen to solve these staffing issues?
So I'd like Mr. Pierce and Ms. Baker to sit down and let's have a conversation about how we do this.
Yep.
All jokes aside, Heather, in this particular budget, there is some staffing concerns being addressed in some of those departments, not all, but in some, much needed. Again, I think this is where the council, along with upper staff, we take each line item seriously, and the warrant or the need to increase staffing in a certain area would really come because something is simply not getting done, and that needs to get done. And over time, we have to look at those very cautiously as we increase, because once you've increased staff, typically that is a perpetual increase.
Yep. Okay, Katrina asked, when will the road improvements of Smith Ranch Road begin?
Man, that's a great question, Katrina. Smith Ranch Road, as it stands right now, I believe should be out for bid here in the next 2 to 3 months. I know you've probably heard that over the last several years, but truthfully, the next couple of months we should be bidding that contract. So I would be hoping, fingers crossed, we can have that contract in place here at the first of the year, first of 25, and then off we go in getting it built. It'll take about probably 18 months to get the road built. And it's been held up. Any project that has to go through federal funding, which it did, the good thing there, it's an 80-20, so we're only paying for 20% of that roadway. The federal government's paying for 80% of that. We have to follow their process, which means their environmental process, which, quite frankly, if anybody wants to talk about a joke of a joke, it's the environmental process of the federal government. So we finally got environmental clearance, which allowed us to then purchase the right-of-way necessary. So we're now moving forward. So it should be out for bid soon, and hopefully that road under construction soon.
Next one, this isn't a question, but I'm going to treat it like one. It's from Luis Skipper. Love it, asking a question, but don't get an answer if you work during the day. So these are live stream now.
I know Lewis. I've known Lewis for a long time. Lewis, that's a great question. Reach out to me direct with any question you have. My email address is easy. I'll answer any question you got, whether you're working or not.
And we'll post a link to, these are all recorded. And we do host every third month or so one in the evening specifically for the people that work during the day. So
and I think we're going to be in an alternate where we alternate it. So Lewis, check in next month at the end of September. Ask away.
David asked, he's looking forward to the tunnel under the Shadow Creek Ranch Parkway to connect the trail system. When is that going to happen?
It's a good question. I think it's in design now.
Yep.
So I'm not sure the design contract, when that is supposed to be complete and then bid, but it's, we approved an engineering design contract, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay. Pam said, speaking of car washes, Whitewater Car Wash's lights are so bright and are not topped, so they do not create light pollution. Why? Pearland should not be allowing businesses to have excessive lighting that actually affects the apartments behind it. That is horrible.
It's a good question. I'm not even sure where that is. We need to look more specifically into